All right, we have another multiple choice question here to review from the 2014 Math Grade 8 SOL test. This multiple choice says, what is the solution of this equation? Very straightforward question. So this is simply a multi-step solution problem. So let's go ahead and begin working this one out. Let me get my pen ready. Let me go ahead and rewrite the problem just as I would if I were writing it on scrap paper. Very important when you transfer the question or what you're trying to solve over to the scrap paper that you write it correctly. You'd be amazed at how many students incorrectly transfer the question over to their scrap paper and they work it out perfectly on their scrap paper, but because the numbers or perhaps the symbols that they used weren't correct when they transferred it over to the paper, they're going to get a wrong answer. So be very careful when you're doing that. All right, so if I'm solving this, the first order of business would be to get all of my variables, at least in this particular problem, getting all my variables together, combining like terms. So I'm going to move all of my x's onto the left side of the equation. So I need to get rid of the 5x on this right side here. So to get rid of this 5x, I'm going to subtract 5x. And it goes away. Now remember the number one rule of algebra though, if you do something on one side of the equation, you must do it on the other side of the equation. So I will subtract 5x on the other side. So when I do that, x minus 5x, and we could put a 1x here if that helps, 1x minus 5x gives me a total of negative 4x's. And on the right side, the 5x's are gone, and all I have left is a positive 6. So I really only have one more step to this multi-step equation, and that's to get the x by itself by getting rid of this negative 4. The negative 4 is multiplied to the x, so to get rid of it, I will divide by negative 4. It goes away, and I have an x. Again, the number one rule in algebra, whatever happens on one side of the equation happens on the other side, so we must divide the right side of the equation by negative 4 as well, and that gives me an answer of 6 over negative 4. Now I don't see 6 over negative 4 as an answer, so that tells me I probably need to simplify this fraction, and I can recognize that 2 goes into both of these values, so if I divide both of those values by 2, I would end up with 3 over negative 2. I still don't see that answer. I see something close to it, negative 3 over 2. Let me ask you, is negative 3 over 2 the same as 3 over negative 2? It absolutely is the same. Absolutely. 3 over negative 2 is the same thing as negative 3 over 2. A lot of students are kind of confused about that. Typically, what I would suggest when you write an answer, and they really should have it written like that in this one, when you have a negative value, just apply the negative to the entire object. Don't give the negative to one number or the other. Just give it to the entire fraction. A lot of students say, or get confused when you ask them, well, which number is negative? And some students would say, well, both numbers are negative. Well, that can't be, because if both numbers are negative, two negatives turn this fraction into a positive. And we don't have that in this situation. We have a negative fraction. So when you're applying a negative sign to a fraction, the negative has to go with either the numerator or the denominator. It doesn't matter which, but it can go with either one. So 3 over negative 2 is the exact same thing as negative 3 over 2. So A is our answer. All right, I would say a common mistake in this problem is initially not recognizing what we need to do as far as getting all of our variables, collecting our like terms, getting all our variables on one side of the equation. So you definitely need to practice these kinds of problems, solving for whatever the unknown is. In this case, it was x, getting the x by itself, getting a y by itself. You should really become a master at that by the time you leave the 8th grade, so that when you see questions like this, it's a piece of cake. All right, have a great day, everybody. Thanks for watching.